The accidental abduction. The last thing Mira Chen remembered was collecting soil samples near the old observatory, and now she was waking up on a surface that felt like liquid glass beneath her back, everything around her glowing with soft violet light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Her head throbbed as she tried to sit up, but gentle pressure on her shoulder kept her down. "Please remain still," a voice said, melodic and strange, each word carefully pronounced. "You are undergoing preliminary decontamination." Mira's eyes snapped open fully now, and she found herself staring up at the most extraordinary being she'd ever seen. He was tall, impossibly so, with skin that shimmered in shades of purple and silver, covered in what looked like constellation patterns that shifted across his body. His eyes were large and luminous, a deep violet that seemed to hold entire galaxies, and when he moved, it was with fluid grace that made her think of water. "What the?" Mira started, trying to jerk away, but the platform beneath her held her gently but firmly. "I apologize for the restraint," the alien said, and she noticed his voice carried genuine concern. "I am Kelvor, decontamination specialist assigned to Station Epsilon 7. You were transported here due to your proximity to our stealth vessel." "Transported?" Mira's voice rose. "You mean kidnapped?" Kelvor's skin patterns flickered in what might have been distress. His long fingers, she noticed, had 5 digits just like hers, though they were more slender and tipped with an opalescent sheen. "Not kidnapped," he said softly, moving to a panel that displayed symbols she couldn't read. "Retrieved. You were exposed to our vessel's exhaust particles, which means you now carry trace elements that require documentation and neutralization." He turned back to her with something that looked like a scanning device, its surface covered in those same shifting patterns. "I must catalog every microbial colony on your person," he continued, and was that embarrassment coloring his tone? "Humans are particularly biodiverse." Mira would have laughed if she wasn't so terrified. "So you kidnapped me because I'm dirty?" "No." Mira's response was immediate, almost panicked. His skin flashed bright purple. "Not dirty. Complex. Fascinating. Your species produces more varied biological signatures than any other we've encountered." He approached slowly, as if she were a skittish animal. "I requested this assignment specifically. I have been studying human decontamination protocols for 3 orbital cycles. I wanted—" He paused. "I wanted to meet one of you." Something in his tone made Mira's racing heart slow slightly. There was wonder there, not malice. "Well," she said, trying to inject some bravery into her voice, "here I am, Mira Chen, certified dirty human." Kelvor's head tilted, a gesture that seemed curious. "Mira," he repeated, and the way he said her name, with such careful attention to each syllable, sent an unexpected warmth through her chest. "It means wonderful in your ancient Earth languages, does it not?" She blinked, surprised. "You know that?" "I have studied extensively," he said, and moved closer with his scanning device. "May I? I promise no harm. I am simply curious." The hologram on Mira's wrist flickered to life. Iris, her AI companion. "Mira, your vitals are elevated but stable," Iris added in a whisper. "Also, he seems genuine, not detecting hostile intent." Mira took a breath and nodded, watching as Kelvor began his scans. His touch, when he steadied her arm, was surprisingly warm, sending tingles across her skin. "Your temperature," he murmured, studying his device with intense focus. "Remarkable." "That's called blushing," Mira muttered, feeling her cheeks heat further. Kelvor looked up, meeting her eyes. His own patterns pulsed with that same purple glow. "Beautiful," he whispered, so quietly she almost missed it. For a long moment they simply stared at each other, human and alien, earth and stars. Then a sharp voice cut through the air like ice. "Specialist Kelvor, report immediately!" A screen materialized showing another alien, this one with harder features and silver-white skin that looked like armor. Kelvor straightened instantly, his entire demeanor shifting to rigid formality. "Commander Voss." "Is that the human specimen?" "Yes, Commander. Beginning standard decontamination protocol." "Excellent. I want full biological mapping completed within 2 cycles. We need to understand their weaknesses." Voss said, and something in that word made Mira's blood run cold. "Understood," Kelvor replied, but Mira noticed his jaw tightened. The screen vanished, leaving them in uncomfortable silence. "Weaknesses?" Mira asked quietly. Kelvor wouldn't meet her eyes. "Please understand, I am bound by protocol." "What kind of protocol?" He finally looked at her, and she saw conflict warring in those purple depths. "The kind I am beginning to question," he said slowly.
The protocol and the curiosity. The first day cycle passed in a blur of scans and awkward silences. Kelvor worked with methodical precision, his instruments humming softly as they catalogued what he called her biological signature. But Mira noticed something else. The way his hands trembled slightly when they came close to her skin. The way his constellation patterns brightened whenever she spoke. "Why purple?" she asked suddenly, breaking the quiet. Kelvor paused mid-scan, looking confused. "I do not understand the question." "Your skin," Mira gestured. "It's purple, like 9. "Well, my hair is purple. I dyed it last month." She ran fingers through her shoulder-length purple locks. "Do all your people look like this?" Something flickered across his face. Surprise? Maybe pleasure? "No," he said softly, moving to sit on a nearby surface that molded itself to his form. "Most Zyphorians display blue or silver tones. Purple is considered unconventional." His patterns pulsed. "I was often told it made me unsuitable for military service. Too visible, they said." "I think it's beautiful," Mira said, before she could stop herself. The words hung in the air between them. Kelvor's entire body flared bright purple, his patterns swirling in what she was learning to recognize as intense emotion. "You find me beautiful?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. Mira felt her own cheeks heating. "I mean, objectively speaking, the bioluminescence is fascinating from a scientific standpoint." "Mira," he interrupted gently, and stood, moving closer. "May I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why do humans adorn themselves with colors not naturally occurring in their biology?" His eyes fixed on her purple hair with open fascination. "Is it ritual? Communication?" "Sometimes it's rebellion. Sometimes it's art. Sometimes," she met his gaze, "sometimes it's because we want to feel beautiful." Kelvor reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his fingers barely brushed a strand of her hair. His touch sent electricity racing down her spine. "Your species constantly surprises me. This color, this choice, it speaks of individuality, of refusing to conform. We are taught that uniformity ensures survival, that deviation is dangerous." "Sounds lonely," Mira said quietly. His hand dropped, but he didn't step away. "Yes," he admitted, "it is." Iris flickered on Mira's wrist. Vital signs indicate elevated cortisol and adrenaline, but also increased oxytocin. "Mira, are you?" Mira hissed. "Iris, privacy mode." The AI dimmed with what sounded like a knowing hum. Kelvor's head tilted. "Your artificial intelligence? It monitors your biology?" "She's supposed to keep me healthy," Mira explained. "But mostly she's nosy." "I heard that," Iris murmured, before going silent. A sound that might have been laughter escaped Kelvor. It was rusty, unpracticed, but genuine. You speak to your technology as if it were companion, not tool. Isn't that what you do with your equipment? No, he said, returning to his instruments, but she noticed a new lightness in his movements. We are taught efficiency above all else. Attachment is considered counterproductive. That's sad, Mira said, watching him work. His hand stilled. Perhaps, he said quietly, but it is all I have known. Over the next several hours, something shifted between them. Calvor asked questions constantly about Earth, about human customs, about music and food, and why people fell in love. Mira answered as best she could, finding herself equally curious about his world, about a culture that prized sterility and order above all else. We are taught that chaos breeds contamination, that emotional expression leads to inefficiency, loss of control. But you feel things, Mira observed. Your skin, it changes color when you're surprised or embarrassed. His patterns flared again, proving her point. Yes, he admitted, it is considered a flaw in my genetic line. Most Zyphorians can control their displays. I cannot seem to master it. Maybe it's not a flaw, Mira suggested. Maybe it's honesty. Calvor stared at her for a long moment, something profound moving through his expression. No one has ever suggested that before, he said. He moved closer with his device, then hesitated. This next scan requires contact with your neck, your pulse point. It may feel intimate. May I proceed? Mira's heart hammered. Yes. His fingers touched her throat with infinite gentleness, finding her pulse. The device hummed, but Mira barely noticed, too focused on the warmth of his touch, the way his breathing had quickened, and the brilliant purple glow spreading across his skin. Your heart rate is elevated, he murmured, his face so close she could see the intricate patterns shifting like living art. Are you in distress? No, Mira breathed. Are you? His thumb moved slightly, a caress, whether intentional or not. I do not know, he confessed. I am experiencing sensations I was taught to suppress, sensations that protocol forbids. What kind of sensations? The words came out barely audible. Calvor's eyes met hers, and in them she saw wonder and fear and something that made her breath catch. The desire to abandon protocol entirely. The moment shattered as alarms suddenly blared through the station. Red light flooded the room. Calvor jerked back, his expression shifting to alarm. What's happening? Mira demanded. He was already at his console, fingers flying over controls. Commander Voss is arriving early. She is coming to inspect you personally. Is that bad? Calvor turned to her, and she saw genuine fear in his eyes. Mira, you must understand. Voss does not see humans as beings. She sees specimens, data, potential threats to neutralize. What does that mean? He crossed to her quickly, his hands gripping her shoulders. It means I need you to trust me, he said urgently. It means I may need to say things, to act in ways that seem cold, but please believe that I am trying to protect you. Calvor! The door hissed open. Commander Voss strode in with 2 armed guards. Her cold silver eyes swept the room, landing on Mira with clinical detachment. Specialist, your progress report indicates unusual delay. Why is the specimen still conscious and mobile? Calvor straightened, and Mira watched him transform into someone else, rigid, emotionless, his patterns dimming to barely visible. The human biology requires conscious cooperation for accurate baseline readings. Sedation would compromise data integrity. Voss circled Mira like a predator. Fascinating. So small. So fragile. Yet they spread across their planet like a virus. Consuming. Contaminating. Hey! Mira started, but Calvor's slight head shake stopped her. I want full cellular breakdown by next cycle. We need to identify their biological vulnerabilities, how they respond to various atmospheric compositions, temperature extremes, chemical exposure. Mira's stomach dropped. Those weren't tests. That was torture. Commander, Calvor said carefully, such procedures would be fatal to the specimen. Yes, Voss smiled coldly. They would be. Begin immediately.
The Forbidden Connection. The door sealed behind Commander Voss with a finality that made Mira's chest tighten. She watched Calvor stand motionless, his patterns completely dark now, almost invisible against his purple skin. The silence stretched between them like a chasm. "Calvor," she whispered. He didn't move, didn't look at her. His hands were clenched at his sides, trembling. "I cannot," he said, voice raw. "I cannot do what she commands." Relief flooded through Mira. "Then don't!" "You do not understand." He turned finally, and she saw anguish written across his features. "Refusal means court-martial, possibly execution. But more than that," his voice cracked, "if I refuse, she will simply assign another specialist, one who will not hesitate, one who will not care that you have a name, that you laugh, that your eyes reflect light like Earth's oceans under moonlight." The last words came out barely audible, and Mira's heart clenched at the emotion bleeding through. "How long do I have?" she asked quietly. "One cycle," Calvor said, "approximately 16 of your hours." Iris activated on her wrist. "Iris, I've been monitoring station communication channels. There may be a way to—" "Iris, scan for surveillance," Mira interrupted. A pause, then, "None active in this chamber currently. Calvor disabled them 4 hours ago." Both of them looked at the alien who had the grace to let his patterns flicker with embarrassment. "I wanted," he said slowly, "to speak with you without observation, without pretense." He moved closer. "I wanted to know you as you are, not as a specimen, not as data." "Why?" Mira asked, though she thought she knew the answer. Calvor reached out, his hand hovering near her face, but not quite touching. "Because in 3 cycles you have shown me more authenticity than I have experienced in my entire existence," he said. "Because when you speak of your world, I can see it through your eyes, messy and chaotic and beautiful. Because when you look at me, you do not see a tool of the state. You see—" He paused, struggling. "You see Calvor." "I do see you," Mira whispered. His patterns exploded with light, cascading across his body in waves of purple and gold. His other hand came up to cup her face, holding her with such tenderness it made her throat tight. "This is forbidden," he breathed, but his thumbs traced her cheekbones, learning her. His skin was warm, humming with energy that felt like stars beneath her touch. "Maybe some contamination is good," Mira said. Her hands found his chest, feeling the rapid rhythm beneath, a heartbeat not so different from her own. "Mira," the way he said her name was almost reverent. "I am terrified," he confessed. "I have never defied protocol, never questioned orders, but the thought of harm coming to you," his voice broke, "it creates a pain I have no designation for. My people, we do not have words for this feeling." "We call it love," Mira said softly. Calvor's eyes widened, his patterns pulsing so brightly the entire room glowed. "Love," he repeated, testing the word. "I have read about this in human literature. Poetry speaks of it as madness, as fire, as a force that destroys and creates." "It can be all those things," Mira agreed. "Then I am experiencing love," he said with certainty. because I would burn every protocol, destroy every rule, if it meant keeping you safe." He leaned forward, pressing his forehead to hers, a gesture she'd learned was significant among his people, the sharing of breath, of space, of trust. "Teach me," he whispered. "Teach me how humans express this love." Mira's breath hitched. "We hold each other," she said, sliding her arms around him, feeling the solid warmth of his form. "We share touch, warmth. She pulled back slightly to meet his eyes. "We kiss." "Kiss," Kilvor repeated. "I have observed this in your cultural databases. The pressing of mouths, the exchange of—" He stopped, flushing bright purple. "It seemed intense." "It can be," Mira said, her heart racing. "Would you like to try?" His patterns swirled in what she now recognized as nervousness mixed with desire. "I do not wish to cause you discomfort. My biology may differ." "Kilvor," she interrupted gently, "I trust you." Those 3 words seemed to undo something in him. He drew her closer, one hand cradling her head, the other at her waist. Then, slowly, carefully, he brought his lips to hers. The kiss was tentative at first, a question. Then Mira leaned in and it became an answer. His lips were softer than she expected, warm and humming with that same energy she'd felt in his touch. When his hand tightened at her waist, pulling her flush against him, she gasped, and he made a sound low in his throat that was definitely not human, but entirely perfect. They broke apart, both breathing hard. Kilvor's patterns were blazing, cycling through colors she hadn't seen before. Deep golds, brilliant silvers, all shot through with that stunning purple. That was, he struggled for words, extraordinary, overwhelming. I felt, he touched his chest, connected, as if our biological systems were synchronizing. "That's pretty accurate," Mira said with a shaky laugh. "Welcome to human chemistry." He kissed her again, more confident now, and Mira lost herself in the warmth of him, in the way his hands explored her back with reverent curiosity, in the small sounds of wonder he made. This being who'd been taught to suppress everything was coming undone in her arms, and it was beautiful. Iris's voice cut through the haze, apologetic but urgent. "Mira, I'm detecting movement in the corridor. Multiple signatures approaching." They sprang apart, Kilvor's patterns immediately dimming as he forced control, but his eyes stayed on her, burning with everything they couldn't say. The door opened. 2 guards entered, flanking a figure Mira didn't recognize, another a Zephorian, this one with elegant silver skin and kind eyes. "Specialist Kilvor," she said formally. Then her expression softened as she looked at Mira. "And this must be the human everyone is discussing." "Dr. Senna," Kilvor said, tension in his voice, "I did not expect. I requested transfer to this station when I heard about your assignment. Kilvor, may I speak with you privately?" He was torn, glancing between Senna and Mira. "I cannot leave. Your guards will ensure the human safety," Senna said pointedly. "This will only take a moment." They stepped to the far corner, speaking in low tones. Mira watched Kilvor's patterns flicker with agitation, then shock, then something that looked like desperate hope. When they returned, Senna approached Mira directly. "I am Dr. Senna, xenobiologist and," she glanced at Kilvor with something like affection, "old friend to this stubborn specialist. I have been monitoring Commander Voss's communications." "And?" Mira prompted. "And she plans to eliminate you regardless of Kilvor's findings. Your existence is seen as a threat, evidence that humans are developing technology to detect our stealth vessels. They want to study your corpse, not your living biology." Mira felt the blood drain from her face. Kilvor was at her side instantly, his hand finding hers. "Senna has a proposal," he said urgently. The doctor nodded.
There is an escape pod bay, level 7. I can create a distraction, disable certain security protocols. But, she looked at Kelvor seriously, if you help her escape, you can never return. You will be branded a traitor, hunted. I understand, he said without hesitation. No, Mira protested. I can't ask you to give up everything. He turned to her, cupping her face. You are not asking. I am choosing. I am choosing you. I am choosing love over protocol, chaos over sterility. His eyes blazed. I am choosing to live rather than merely exist. Senna smiled sadly. You were always the best of us. Too much heart for this cold empire. She activated a device on her wrist. You have 2 hours before shift change. After that, security triples. Thank you, Kelvor said, for everything. Thank me by surviving, Senna replied, then looked at Mira. Protect him, human. He is far more fragile than he appears.
The dissection order. The corridors were a maze of silver and violet light. Kelvor moved with purpose, his hand gripping Mira's as they navigated through service passages he'd memorized during his rotations. Iris provided updates in whispers, tracking guard movements and security sweeps. Left here, Kelvor instructed, pulling her into a narrow maintenance shaft. They pressed against each other in the confined space, breathing hard. Mira could feel his heart racing against her chest, matching her own frantic rhythm. 2 guards passing, Iris warned. Kelvor's arms came around her protectively, his body shielding hers. In the dim light, his patterns pulsed softly, and despite everything, Mira felt safe. The footsteps faded. They moved again. Level 7 is 3 sections ahead, Kelvor said, checking his wrist display. Senna's distraction should begin in 4 minutes. They made it 2 sections before alarms shrieked through the station. That's not Senna's distraction, Iris announced grimly. That's a station-wide alert. They know you're running. Impossible, Kelvor breathed. We disabled. A screen flickered to life on the wall. Commander Voss's face filled it, cold and furious. Specialist Kelvor, you are hereby charged with treason, sabotage, and theft of military property. Her voice echoed everywhere. Surrender the human immediately, or Dr. Senna will face execution for her role in your betrayal. Kelvor froze, anguish flooding his features. Senna. Don't stop, Mira urged. She knew the risks. She wanted this for you. I cannot let her die. You cannot save her by surrendering. Mira gripped his face, forcing him to look at her. Kelvor, listen to me. If we're caught, we both die and her sacrifice means nothing. We keep moving. His patterns flickered with pain, but he nodded. They ran. The escape pod bay doors loomed ahead, sealed tight. Kelvor's fingers flew across the access panel, override code scrolling as he worked. 30 seconds to breach those doors, a mechanical voice announced. Heavy footsteps thundered closer. Kelvor, Mira started. Almost there, he muttered, sweat beading on his luminescent skin. 20 seconds. I need to tell you, Mira said urgently. In case we don't make it, I need you to know that these past days, they've been— Don't, Kelvor interrupted, finally looking at her. Do not say goodbye. We are not finished, Mira Chen. His voice was fierce. I have only just learned what it means to live. I refuse to stop now. 10 seconds. The panel beeped green. The doors hissed open. 5 seconds. They lunged through as weapons fire scorched the air behind them. Kelvor slammed his hand on the emergency seal, and the doors crashed shut, buying them precious moments. The escape pod waited, small and silver, barely big enough for 2. Get in, Kelvor ordered, helping her through the hatch. What about you? Mira demanded. He was at the launch console, programming coordinates. I am coming, I promise. The bay doors began to override, splitting open. Guards poured through. Kelvor dove into the pod, sealing it behind him as weapons fire ricocheted off the hull. He pulled Mira into his lap, one hand on the launch controls, the other wrapped around her waist. Hold on to me, he said. Always, she whispered. He hit launch. The escape and the promise.
The pod rocketed through space, Earth growing larger in the viewport. Alarms blared as pursuit vessels locked onto their trajectory. Kael'vor's hands moved rapidly across controls, executing evasive maneuvers that threw them against the restraints. "They're firing," Iris warned. "I know," Kael'vor growled, violet light streaming from his patterns as concentration consumed him. An energy blast clipped their wing. The pod spun violently. Mira cried out as they tumbled, but Kael'vor's arms never loosened, holding her secure even as he fought the controls. "I can lose them in Earth's atmosphere," he said through gritted teeth. "The friction will mask our signature, but the landing will be rough. I trust you." They hit atmosphere like a meteor, flames engulfing the viewport. The pod shook so hard Mira's teeth rattled, but Kael'vor's focus never wavered. He was magnificent like this, no longer the careful specialist following protocol, but someone fierce and alive and fighting for what he loved. The pursuing vessels broke off, unable to risk Earth's detection systems. "We're clear," Iris announced, relief in her digital voice. The pod's descent slowed, emergency thrusters firing. They crashed into an ocean, water rushing up to embrace them. The impact knocked the air from Mira's lungs. Silence. Just the gentle rocking of waves. "Mira!" Kael'vor's hands were on her face, frantic. "Mira, speak to me!" "Still here, still with you." His forehead pressed to hers, his whole body shaking. "I thought, when we hit—" "I'm okay," she whispered. "We're okay." He kissed her then, desperate and deep, pouring everything into it, fear and relief and love so overwhelming that it made them both tremble. They surfaced in the pod's emergency raft, dawn breaking over the Pacific. Mira had never seen anything more beautiful than Kael'vor bathed in Earth's sunlight, his purple skin gleaming, his patterns dancing with joy. "This is your world," he breathed, looking around in wonder. "Our world now," Mira corrected. He turned to her, and in his eyes she saw their future. Uncertain, dangerous, but theirs. "I am an exile," he said softly. "I have no home, no purpose beyond what we create." "Then we create something beautiful," Mira said, taking his hands. "We create a life where love matters more than protocol, where being messy and chaotic and alive is celebrated." Kael'vor smiled, the expression transforming his face. "I would like that very much." A rescue helicopter appeared on the horizon. Dr. Helena Reeves would have questions. The world would have questions. But as Kael'vor pulled Mira close, as their hearts beat in synchronization, as Earth-Sun warmed their intertwined forms, none of that mattered. "Sala through," he murmured. "In my language, the bond that transcends reason, that defies logic, that makes one whole." "Love," Mira translated, smiling. "Yes," he agreed, kissing her softly. "Love." The helicopter drew closer, and their new life began.